Hi, welcome. My name is Angelique, and today I'm going to be talking about Mercury and Libra as it relates to astrology. Thank you to everyone who's been liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it. Today's talk on Mercury and Libra focuses on interest and communication style, which Mercury is known for. If it's your first time listening to me, I've been a student of astrology for over 30 years, and I also have a background in counseling, mental health, and psychology. So I love to dive deep, love to explore anything that has to do with patterns, anything unconscious, but also how we relate to one another, our life path. And astrology is really good for future and prediction, but also it can be a great tool to understand ourselves, to make our lives more better and balanced. And it's interesting I'm talking about balance because today is focus on Libra, which is a sign about balance. But I will get more into that. I like to start with some mythology and some symbolism to really help understand the sign before we ground it and find out like practically what the sign can mean for people. So Libra, the sign, is ruled by the planet Venus, and Venus is a Roman goddess. And I'm going to mostly talk about interest in communication when it comes to mythology. If you'd like to hear more about mythology of Libra, I have a Sun in Libra episode podcast that you can listen to if you'd like more about that. But Venus, what we know is this is a goddess who was very interested in her own pleasure, her own comfort, anything that was peaceful. So the interest of Venus, especially when it relates to Libra, is about harmony. It's about peace. It's about balance. I always think of Venus as a woman in a flowy dress with bouncy curly hair, just slowly walking through a garden, eating fruit. I don't know why fruit is in this image, but it's just like, and there's birds singing. Like, that's what I think of for Venus, especially when it comes to Libra. So peace and harmony, but Venus in Libra also extends to people, to animals, so all living beings, and using its intellect. Venus used its intellect to create a life that was harmonious and beautiful and comfortable. And Venus, what we know is they were very beautiful, and so using their looks to appear beautiful, aesthetically beautiful, this could help them feel comfortable in themselves, but also attract other people that would want to take care of them. And Libra is going to have a lot of these facets when it comes to Mercury. There's going to be a high interest in creating peace and harmony, whether that's in your space, whether that's with the public, so something like law. If it's science, you're working towards anything science-based, medicine-based, I'm thinking like aesthetics, plastic surgery, things like that, to get a peaceful or beautiful or aesthetically pleasing environment or look. That's where Mercury and Libra can really be interested in. And Venus, as it relates to mythology for Libra, that the communication style is going to be a little more harmonious, a little more beautiful, a little more balanced. So talking and speaking is going to come off in a way that's very socially pleasing. And I mean, socially, there are different social norms depending on where you grow up. So there's not one size fits all, but generally, this is a softer energy because Venus liked to not create a lot of conflict or like harsh language or anything that didn't come off super pleasing. So we might not see a lot of like cursing or a lot of slang or anything that's kind of that appears rough. So the language is going to be more beautiful or more pleasant or just more logical, so it's not going to ruffle any feathers for anybody else. So we see a lot of diplomats that have Mercury in Libra because they're able to tune in to what other people want to create a harmonious connection environment for other people. So, in terms of symbolism, the elements of Mercury and Libra are very comfortable. They're very simpatico. Mercury is ruled by air, and Libra is an air sign. So, you have this energy of communication and interest taking on a lighter, social, more balanced view and more logical. So, there can be some wittiness, some banter, just because that air element, but the witty and banter is usually going to have some end goal of making people feel balanced, to make them feel good, or to right a wrong. So it's either going to be diplomatic or judicial or something like that. So maybe the witty and the banter is get to get fairness accomplished, say in a courtroom, or it's going to be to make a social situation more pleasing, more airy, so lighter. So there's not going to be too much conflict that might come from their communication style. Like I said before, it's going to be softer. Air likes to move and almost be undetected. So Mercury in Libra is someone who they might talk in a very indirect way. This is where this passive or passive aggression can come from in a communication style. They might feel uncomfortable being so very direct, especially if the end goal is not a harmony or a balance. So, for example, if someone with displacement had a job and the job continually asked them to stay later to help out, someone with Mercury in Libra might do that more often because it creates a harmonious working relationship. But if their job was asking them to stay late all the time to help, but they weren't paying them fairly, or the wages were missing, or there was a lot of unfair treatment at the workplace, that is where Mercury and Libra might stand up. So either fighting for fairness for other people, and it might be more challenging for them to stand up to fairness for themselves, especially if it has to be in a big conflict way. So they might indirectly ask for something to say, hey, is it okay if I take the day off? That gives people the option to say no, and they might feel more comfortable doing that because it's not a very assertive, direct way, as opposed to saying, hey, I have this thing and I need to take this day off. That's a very different some circumstances. It can lead to conflict. There's a possibility of someone saying no or angry, and then you might have to assert your boundaries and go back and forth. So Mercury Libra, while very good at using their intellect to create this fair and balanced and harmonious environments for other people, Libra is a sign of the scales, but it likes being around the other or being with someone else or helping. So that helping, that fighting for other people, the underdog, might be something that comes more natural to them. But when it comes to themselves, standing up for themselves, asserting their own boundaries, making sure that things are fair for them, it might be a blind spot for them. So when it comes to interest, Mercury and Libra, with all of this air energy and the Venusian quality, a lot of the interests are going to take on a flair of anything beautiful, anything harmonious. So this could be just aesthetics, anything of the senses that make you feel more beautiful or just feel more balanced. That can be so many things. So any type of spa treatments, any body treatments or enhancements, makeup, hair, but even in the home environment, because that's a place where we are experiencing aesthetics. So whether it's a home or a work environment, there should be a pleasant, harmonious energy to the place. So not a lot of loud noises, a lot of chaotic. Someone with Mercury and Libra might have a hard time working in those environments. This can come to just having a place that's decluttered. There's great art on the wall. There's lots of objects that are pleasing to the eye or beautiful or artistic. And hobbies are going to take on this flair too, so they might be really interested in any creative endeavors, especially if they're around structure or organization. So this can look like being a designer of any type, home designer, fashion designer, or as I said before, aesthetics, because there's a certain mechanical, structural skill that's needed to do something like body contouring or plastic surgery. So that could be a job or just something they're interested in having done. Anything that they can touch that's pleasing in some way. So the clothing is going to have a feel that's very pleasant to them. So finer fabrics or just fabrics that they feel very comfortable in that have a pleasing quality. So art, music, film, all of that will either take on a pleasing, harmonious, or a romantic tone, could be very interesting to them. Also, doing things in pairs can be very, very interesting and exciting for people with this placement, because Libra likes that partner, they like the other person, they like to do things in pairs, and which can lead to maybe more of a codependence energy depending on the person. So that's something to look out for. But their day-to-day routines, they might really enjoy working in pairs or doing hobbies in pairs, or just their communication style is always going to be thinking about and including the other people. So the social skills are amazing for someone with Mercury Libra because of that need to empathize and understand what people need to hear, what they need to feel, and that intellectual capacity is going to be at its greatest when they need to figure out how to talk and communicate with other people. So anything social, they might be really interested about, but they also are going to excel on that. Like salespeople of any sort, anyone working with law, attorneys, judges, anything like that, they are creative in how they're able to speak to people to get things to a place where everybody is at least feeling like things are fair or that they're pleased or that they're happy. This is a placement that's going to love to do that. And because there's such a more pleasant or harmonious way this person communicates and shares knowledge, it can be very difficult for them to connect to people who are maybe very aggressive or even come off selfish in how they speak. So can have a very hard time with people that are bullies, or if they experience bullying in childhood, that could be something that really sticks with them. But having partners or friends that really are only thinking about themselves and not really including other people into their decisions, their talking style, someone who maybe takes up a whole conversation and doesn't have like a natural back and forth, that can be harder for them to deal with day to day. So Mercury and Libra might really enjoy people who are more logical in how they speak, which is they understand the mechanics of a conversation. They understand what to say, what not to say. There's those societal norms can be huge for people with Mercury and Libra. So if other people are able to talk to them in a graceful manner, or these other people are just able to talk in a way that's fun and light and sociable, but they're not saying anything that's too harsh or critical or rough, Mercury Libra is going to have an easier time getting along with someone like this. So these are Mercury Libra are the people who, more than anyone else, are maybe more about, oh, we don't talk about politics in a social setting. You don't talk about religion. You don't talk about anything taboo, sex, cursing. In a social atmosphere, these might be the people that are always watching what they say, watching how they communicate and come off to people, and that might be something of high interest to them. And so, meeting with other people that don't think that way and maybe are always trying to shock or push people can be challenging. But overall, this is a great placement for anybody who wants to do any work with the people, with the public in any way, or anything creative, anything that creates peace or harmony or beauty with the body, the home environment, any spaces, like beautiful spaces, museums. This is also a placement, lastly, I would say libraries can be really good because it holds information, and it's a quieter environment. So something, or like a coffee shop, something where the vibe is a little more slower paced. They might just enjoy going to these places or working there. Okay, so that's what I have for Mercury in Libra. If you have this place